In this video, I am going to be sharing how my food addiction almost killed me, and I'm going to be sharing with you some ways you can tell if you are currently a food addict. Stay tuned. Welcome to the video. My name is Steven Campolo. I am a fat loss coach, and I used to be 100 pounds overweight. That guy used to be me, and then I underwent my own personal fitness journey. And really over the last 20 years, I've been on my own journey. So I've tried every single diet you can imagine. I've taken all the supplements. I've worked with numerous trainers, coaches, nutritionists, therapists, if you name it, I've probably done it. So when I make these videos, I really come to you from a point of, someone that's tried a lot of things, and I feel like I could tell you, exactly what works and what doesn't work. This way you can kind of sort through all of the BS out there, okay? But really the purpose of this video is something that I'm very passionate about and something that's really near and dear to my heart, and that is food addiction and binge eating. These are both things that I really struggled with over the last 20 years. And I'll be honest, I call myself a recovering food addict. I was asked last year to do a TEDx talk, and I actually introduced myself, and the first line of my talk was, "My name is Steven Campolo, and I am a recovering food addict." Not, "I am Steven Campolo and I am fully recovered," but I gave myself the title of a recovering food addict because I truly don't believe you could ever be fully recovered from food, because we have to eat to live. That's why I think food is the most, and hardest addiction to break over drugs, over alcohol, because, if you struggle with alcohol, well, you have to quit alcohol, and you don't need alcohol to live, right? You don't need drugs to live, but we need food to live. So really learning to manage your relationship with food and trying to not go overboard every time you're invited to a dinner or a party, or if there's temptation at home, really managing that relationship with food is really critical, because there's an emotional tie to food. There's a dopamine release that we get from food. A lot of people eat when they're stressed. It's the first thing they run to is food. So food is a comfort for a lot of people, and that's really what led me to become a food addict at a very early age. So I want to take you back to when my food addiction really began. So I remember it was my 5th birthday party. My mom had invited, a bunch of friends from school over to the house. We played around. My mom made a bunch of cupcakes and pizza bagels. And I remember after everyone went home, it was just me. And I remember looking at the table full of cupcakes and pizza bagels that were left over. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, all of this food is mine. Like, there's no one here I have to share it with. Like, I could eat all of this. I just knew from a very early age, like, food and pleasure went together. And I knew my relationship with food was very different from other kids, even my own siblings. Like, I'm the oldest of 4 kids, but my brother never struggled with his weight. My sisters were, they never struggled with their weight. I was the only one that really had this relationship with food. I call it a love affair with food because that's really what it ended up being. So for most of my childhood, I just loved to eat. I ate and I ate and I ate, and ultimately it led me to become 100 pounds overweight. So by the time I was 15 years old, I was pushing about 300 pounds. And I remember my dad took me, to the doctor one day for my annual physical, and the doctor told my dad, he's like, your son has borderline diabetes, he has high blood pressure, he's probably gonna have heart disease soon. Like, essentially he was telling my dad, hey, your son really has to do something about his weight, or he's probably not gonna live very long. Now, being a young kid, it really didn't register for me at that point. I didn't and wasn't motivated to really make a change until I started, to go through puberty and start to get interested in girls. That's when I really started my weight loss journey. But up until then, like, my food addiction had really caused me to be 100 pounds overweight and, really unhealthy. Now, around 16, 17 years old, that's when I really started to look into starting my own fitness journey. I was tired of being bullied in school. I was tired of being made fun of. Like, I was starting to become interested in girls and, wanting to go on dates, but no one wanted to be with me because I was essentially the fat kid, right? So I began to just eat chicken and broccoli, because I'm like, well, when people want to get in shape, that's usually what they do. They just eat chicken and broccoli. So I ate chicken and broccoli every day. I ran every single night. I just did a ton of cardio. I severely underate and essentially starved myself. And I started to lose weight very quickly, but I was doing it the wrong way. And I remember, I would give myself like one, big cheat meal every single week. So every Saturday I would eat whatever I wanted and essentially engorge myself, because after that meal was over, the next day I had to be back on my super restrictive diet. And this actually made things a lot worse. And this is what led to me, developing a binge eating disorder, right? I always tell people, my food addiction is what led me to be 100 pounds overweight. But my binge eating disorder didn't really start until I started my weight loss journey, because now, I was telling myself I can't eat certain foods, right? Certain foods are bad. You can't eat cookies, you can't eat cake, you can't eat pizza. So I started to demonize foods. And when I would eat those foods, I would feel really bad about myself. I would overdo it. I would engorge myself and binge to the point of almost being sick. Now, fast forward years later, I was coming home one night and I was starving, and I binged an entire jar of peanut butter, and it led me to develop a gallbladder attack that night. So I had a bunch of peanut butter, I went to bed, and about 3 o'clock in the morning, I woke up in excruciating pain, and I didn't know what was happening. Like, I thought I was dying. So I drove myself to the hospital. They did an ultrasound of my gallbladder and said, your gallbladder is about to rupture and we have to do emergency surgery. And I remember the doctor came into my room the next day and he goes, Mr. Campolo, you're very, very lucky and very fortunate that you came in when you did, because if you would had waited just a few more hours to come see us, there's a good chance your gallbladder would have ruptured in your sleep and you would be dead. Talk about like being scared to death over the night before and having binged and never really realizing how serious of an issue my food addiction and binge eating had become. Like, it had literally almost killed me. One of the most important things I decided to do once I realized I had a serious problem with food was I just wouldn't keep certain foods in the house. If there was something that tempted me, like peanut butter, I don't know why I love peanut butter. I could binge an entire jar of peanut butter. That's what almost killed me and gave me my gallbladder attack, was peanut butter. I just don't keep it in my house anymore, because the truth is, even though I'm disciplined, even though, I work out every day and I try to eat healthy most of the time, in a moment of weakness or stress, or, if I'm looking for a comfort food and peanut butter is there, I'm probably going to end up binging, right? So, set yourself up for success. Set your environment to make sure that you don't have any readily tempting foods available for you to go binge on or for you to go overboard on, because if you're keeping it around yourself, it's like a drug addict, keeping drugs in the drawer, right? It's like, well, even though you might not want to do the drugs, if the drugs are in the drawer and maybe you had a bad day, you're probably going to go use those drugs, right? Or an alcoholic's not going to keep alcohol in the house, right? It wouldn't be a very wise move. So acknowledge that you have a problem with food, right? Acknowledge that, you are someone who loses control when you eat certain foods, and then just don't keep those certain foods in the house. And the last thing I will leave you with is, don't put too much pressure on yourself to be perfect on your fitness journey. When I gave my TEDx talk about a year ago, the title of my talk was "Perfection is Killing Your Progress." And what I meant by that was that when we first start a fitness journey, a lot of us feel like we have to be perfect, right? We have to be perfect with our diet, perfect with our workouts. And the second we miss the mark, the second we give into temptation, the second we fall off track, it's like you feel like a failure. You end up binge eating or self-sabotaging, and you're kind of on this roller coaster ride for years and years and years, right? So don't put too much pressure on yourself to be perfect, okay? We're not robots, we're humans. You're gonna fall off track, you're gonna mess up periodically. We all do it, and don't be surprised when it happens, because it's all part of the process, okay? All you have to do is get right back on track the next day, keep it moving, course correct, and I promise you, if you could do that, you will reach your goal, okay? Instead of taking 2 steps forward and 2 steps back, once you get on track immediately after messing up, it's like taking 3 steps forward and maybe only 1 step back, okay? If you do that over the long term, you're gonna be way ahead of the game. So stop putting too much pressure on yourself. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you wanna see more videos like this from me, talking about food addiction, binge eating, these are topics that I am, intimately close with, because I've struggled with them myself, and it's a topic that I really enjoy talking about, because even though I'm fit and healthy now and I'm a fat loss coach, like, these are topics that I really enjoy helping people through, because it's something that I've struggled with myself over the years, okay? So if you enjoyed it, let me know below. I wanna hear from you. And it would mean the world to me if you liked and subscribed. So please hit the bell for notifications. And until next time, we'll see you.